On August 5, 2021, a road rage incident in Rotorua has led to life-altering consequences for both the victim and the offender. Patched Mongrel Mob member Tihema Nuttall, 34, also known as Temm Dogg, has now been sentenced in the Rotorua District Court to over 9 years in prison after being found guilty of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The incident occurred on 5 August 2021, after Nuttal picked up his children from Lynmore Primary School. He was driving towards central Rotorua in his silver Mazda, with 2 children in the car. There were extensive roadworks at the intersection of Te-Nah and Tarawera Rd, causing cars to line up. While Nuttal had stopped at a red light, he had a minor traffic dispute with the car behind him, a Ford Territory, driven by William Merito, a complete stranger to Nuttal. At the red light, Nuttal got out of his car to speak to Merito. They exchanged a few heated words before Nuttal returned to his vehicle. When the lights turned green, Merito drove his black Ford Territory past the Mazda, and they exchanged few further words, which angered Nuttal. After this, Nuttal, who had a loaded shotgun in his car, pursued Merito, pulled alongside his vehicle, and shot at him through the window with his shotgun. Pellets blasted through the glass of Merito's passenger window and into his face and head. Glass and shrapnel struck his eyes, face, and forehead. Blood was splattered throughout the car, covering the dashboard, windows and the passenger seat. The bystanders called the police, while the shooter fled in his car. Police used CCTV footage to find the vehicle's registered owner. They found the vehicle in Rotorua's central city about 4:30 p.m. and arrested Tihema Nuttall. He was charged with wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. In court, Merito testified to the jury about the moment he was shot, saying there was a flash of light, everything went white, and he suddenly went blind. However, he survived, though he sustained serious injuries, including permanent damage to his vision. Merito said he underwent surgeries at Waikato Hospital and still suffered from ongoing sight problems. He identified Nuttal as the shooter from a police lineup, and confirmed that there were 2 kids in the car. Nuttal pleaded not guilty and denied all charges, stating that it wasn't him. Through his lawyer, he argued that a key part of the case hinged on the fact that Merito, by his own admission, was merely guessing when he identified him in the police lineup. He said Merito couldn't clearly see the person he drove past because it was raining and he was focused on driving. He also mentioned that Merito admitted his eyesight wasn't good and that he has type 2 diabetes, which he was borderline for 3 years ago. Nuttall's lawyer told the jury not to pay too much attention to the clothing shown in the CCTV footage. Even though Nuttal wore a gray hoodie with Everlast on the front when he picked up his children from school, he argued that didn't mean he was the same person seen minutes later wearing a gray hoodie. He admitted that gunshot residue was found in his Mazda, so the car was involved in the shooting. But it did not mean that Nuttal was the one who fired the shots. This also meant that all this evidence was circumstantial, relying on assumptions rather than direct proof of his involvement. Therefore, without clear, concrete evidence linking Nuttal to pulling the trigger, there was reasonable doubt about his guilt. In a 3-day trial, the jury took just 2 hours to find Nuttal guilty of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The Crown prosecutor demanded a starting sentence of 11 years in prison, emphasizing the serious nature of the crime and the disturbing details surrounding it. The fact that a loaded firearm was kept in the car with children, and that it was used recklessly in a situation that didn't justify such a violent response. Prosecutor also pushed for a minimum sentence of 50%, highlighting the offender's criminal history, which included 29 prior prison sentences at just 34 years old. While acknowledging that the individual had spent 35 months on electronically monitored bail leading up to the trial, prosecutor pointed out that he had been granted frequent absences, up to 23 hours a week, a luxury not typically allowed for those under house arrest. These absences weren't just for errands. He had the freedom to take walks, pick his children up from school, take them to the gym, and even pursue personal projects, such as completing his music degree and creating several music videos. Temm Dogg's social media handles describe him as a rapper and founder of mob music. According to his profile, he is an emerging artist from Rotorua and his music reflects his life experiences, including overcoming a history of drugs, crime, and incarceration. He enrolled at a polytechnic, studied music for 2 years, and achieved a New Zealand Diploma Level 5, marking a significant turn towards a positive path. His discography includes gangster rap and drill music, showcasing his evolving style and dedication to his craft. His music is heavily inspired by his ties to the Mongrel Mob and gang culture, reflecting raw, unfiltered experiences from his life. Through hard-hitting lyrics and gritty beats, he tells authentic stories of street life, allegiance, and the harsh realities of gang involvement, highlighting both his personal journey and his commitment to his art. He had over 40,000 YouTube subscribers, over 15,000 followers on Facebook and over 35,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. In the sentencing, Judge Anna Skellern used the starting point of 11 years in prison but added 9 months due to Nuttall's prior criminal history, which included 7 convictions for violent offenses and 5 for firearms offenses. She acknowledged that while Nuttal hadn't been convicted of a violent crime in the 7 years before the shooting, it was concerning that he was driving around with a loaded firearm in his car, with his children, and was ready to react so violently to a minor traffic disagreement with a stranger. The judge allowed a 12-month discount for his nearly 3 years on electronically monitored bail, noting 2 breaches but agreeing they weren't serious enough to justify sending him back to prison. Judge also gave him a 10% discount based on the factors in his cultural report. The report outlined how he was a product of his environment. He was born in prison and had many negative influences, with his father being the president of a Mongrel Mob chapter. In the report, Temm Dogg wrote that he came from the gutter and lived a life of drugs, crime and prison, and his music was a reflection of his life experiences. He made music to provide a sense of therapy and well-being, and because it was his passion. He said he planned to transform negatives into positives by sharing his story in the form of articulate poetry. Judge Skellern did not impose a minimum period of imprisonment and jailed him for 9 years behind bars. With this sentence, Nuttal would not be eligible for parole for just over 3 years. The judge left it to the parole board to decide at that time whether he posed a risk to the community. After his sentence, Temm Dogg wrote on Facebook, "Don't believe everything you read, just understand this. I'll be out before you know it, bigger, badder, and better than ever." The road rage incident involving Temm Dogg serves as a stark reminder of how a moment of impulsive anger can lead to life-altering consequences. His decision to escalate a minor traffic dispute into a violent encounter not only resulted in severe, permanent injuries for the victim but also led to his own imprisonment for over 9 years. The case also sheds light on the complex duality of Nuttall's life, as both a devoted father and an emerging rapper with a troubled past rooted in gang culture and violence. While his music career symbolized a potential path to rehabilitation and personal growth, his actions on that day highlighted unresolved behavioral patterns influenced by his upbringing and gang environment. Judge Skellern's sentencing balanced these factors, acknowledging his efforts toward change while holding him accountable for the gravity of his crime. Ultimately, this incident underscores the devastating ripple effects of violent decisions, impacting not just the victim and the offender, but also their families and communities. It serves as a sobering lesson on the importance of self-control, the far-reaching consequences of violent behavior, and the challenges of breaking free from a cycle of crime and aggression. If you're looking for more thrilling and edgy bikey updates, don't hesitate, whack that subscribe button, spread and share the video, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments. And for the true grid Spartans out there, consider sending a super thanks or buy us a coffee to show some love. Your support keeps us going and the channel thriving, especially since most of our videos aren't monetized due to all the crime-related content. Stay tuned, stay curious, stay awesome, and take care. Wu-Tang.
Fighting through the low, metal chains just props in the life show. Fall down, rise up, angels never mute. Pushing limits, never tasting the absolute. Gravel in the mouth, but the growl ain't softened. Dusty trails lead the truth after often. Biking through the fall, to lands undiscovered. Embrace the scars with spirit uncovered.